All right, good morning. I was not expecting to be up here speaking with you again so soon, but during the week, I was speaking with my good friend Bruce Knight, who said we could use a little help. And I said, you know what, I would love to help. So, yes. And yes, great to be with you again, and hope you've all had a blessed week. So today we are talking about the real tale of two cities. Now, even if I didn't tell you the title of this particular topic, I'm sure that if I read to you the passage, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, you would know what book we are talking about, right? What book is that? Okay, The Tale of Two Cities. Boy, you had me worried there for a minute. Yes, The Tale of Two Cities. And perhaps equally so, if I read this particular passage, you would also know, it is a far better thing I do than I have ever done before. Recognize that one? Interesting that is actually the first sentence and the last sentence of the book. We get kind of lost in the middle of the book somewhere somehow, but we remember that first line and that last line. They're both very powerful and memorable. So the two cities. Does anybody know what those two cities that the book A Tale of Two Cities is actually referencing? Does anybody know? London is one of them. Do you know what the other one is? It's in France. Yes, Paris. London and Paris. And of course, the book A Tale of Two Cities is classified as historical fiction. So that means that they are taking place in a real time frame and in real places. So they are historically bound by something. But the story that is actually being told is not a real story. So it's something that maybe could have happened in that time, but didn't really. It's fictitious, but it's a story that is set in a historical period. Now, the story is set during the French Revolution, and particularly at that time, when you think of the perhaps two of the most important cities in the world, you would probably think of London and Paris, right? Two very, very important cities. And as it happens, the book written by Charles Dickens in the late 1850s, even at that time, if you were thinking of very important and significant cities in the world, you would probably think of London and Paris. Even today, you might think of London and Paris when I told you to think of some pretty important cities in the world, right? London and Paris would probably meet your list. Let's look at some important cities. So we'll start with Paris, right? So Paris is a pretty nice place, unless you've visited there. There are some less nice things about Paris as well, but Paris is a major city in the world, right? The Eiffel Tower is in Paris, right? So one of the wonders of the modern world, right? A great monument there. There's about 3 million people that live in Paris, so lots of people. A couple more than live here in Johnston, right? So if you're counting, so Paris is a major city. But maybe when you think of a major city, you maybe think of Los Angeles, California. Does that come to anybody's mind? Pretty big place, right? It's considered the entertainment capital of the world. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for you, maybe it depends on your perspective, but pretty big place. A little over 4 million people live in Los Angeles. That's pretty big, right? About double the size of Paris. But maybe that's not what you think of as being some of the most important cities. Maybe you think of Dubai. Anybody know of Dubai? Do you know where Dubai is? Yes, it's in the UAE, correct? United Arab Emirates. So major city. Here's an interesting fact. Dubai has the most five-star hotels of any city in the world. So if you want to stay at a fancy hotel, go to Dubai. Just be on your best behavior when you go there. I can guarantee you that is very important, but you can go to a nice city. Interestingly, the Queen Elizabeth II, the former cruise ship, is actually moored in Dubai and is now a five-star hotel. So when it stopped being a ship, it became a five-star hotel. There's a little over 4.5 million people that live in Dubai, so pretty big place, right? But you know what? We're good Americans here, right? So we're going to say New York City. That is the city to be in, right? Pretty big place, right? It's actually the largest city in North America. Big place. You can think of some of the important things there, right? Like we've got the Statue of Liberty, obviously, as you can see in the picture. That's contained in New York. The Madison Square Garden, if you're into sports, right? Like that's a big attraction. It's a hub of a lot of things happening. There's about 14 million people that live in and around New York, so it's a big place, right? Not the biggest in the world, mind you, but it's a big place. And of course, you might think of London, as we mentioned, right? London is a pretty big place and very important. You've got Wimbledon. Any of you into tennis? 2 people here are into tennis, all right? So you know what Wimbledon is. Even if you're not, you probably know what Wimbledon is. You've at least heard of it, right? So it's the popular tennis club. There's the Albert Hall if you're into music and entertainment. Wembley Stadium if you're into football, right? The Houses of Parliament and Big Ben are housed in London. Massive place as well. There's around I think 10 million people that live in London alone, so pretty big place. But hey, maybe you think of Shanghai. You know where Shanghai is? China. Yes. Okay. It's the largest city in China. Up until a few years ago, this was actually the largest city in the world as well. It's actually number 3 today. So it has a population of about 28 million people. Can you imagine living in a city of 28 million people? And it's not the largest in the world, by the way, as well. So up until recently, it was the largest in the world. But maybe you think of somewhere that's got a lot of people. If you're interested, Tokyo, Japan is actually number 1 today, bordering on about 38 million people living in and around Tokyo, Japan. Doesn't sound like a great place to visit to me. It sounds a little crowded, but I don't know. If you're a real social butterfly, maybe you get along there in Tokyo, Japan. These are all pretty big and important cities, right? Like we would say these are major cities in our world today, right? And if I told you that in reality, none of these cities particularly matter in the grand scheme of things, would you believe me? You see, there's really only 2 cities that have ever mattered. Only ever 2. You see, these 2 cities have shaped this planet's past. We are a product of one of these 2 cities. These 2 cities exist today. And these 2 cities will determine the future of this planet as well. Can you believe that? Only 2 cities that ever matter? Are you telling me that of that list of fantastic cities, I can only pick 2 of those that really matter? And I told you, none of them were on that list we just went through. Only 2 cities have ever mattered. They're from the beginning of time in the world, going all the way through to the end of time of this world. 2 cities. Do you know what they are? You're close. The first one we find is Babel. Now, what is Babel? Babel was a settlement. We see it here in Genesis chapter 11. So for reference, let's put this in frames of where this is in both the Bible and world's history, right? This is relatively soon after the flood. We don't know exactly how many years this is, right? But this is relatively soon after the flood. We're thinking maybe 1 to 2 generations after the flood. So not terribly long removed from the time when Noah was on the boat, right? And here in the settlement known today as Babel, we read what took place. So Genesis chapter 11, we'll start with verse 1. It says, "At that time, the whole world spoke one language." Can you imagine that? That's kind of interesting, right? No language barriers to anything. At that time, the whole world spoke one language. It also kind of makes sense because we're only a couple generations removed from one family being the anchor of everything. And everyone used the same words. As people moved from the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia and settled there. They said to each other, "Let's make bricks and bake them to make them hard." So they used bricks instead of stones and tar instead of mortar. So far, okay, right? They settled in this place and they discovered a new mechanism of building. Any of you ever been in a building made with bricks? Nothing inherently wrong with that, correct? But let's continue. Picking up in verse 4 then. They said to each other, "Let's build a city and a tower for ourselves, whose top will reach high into the sky. We will become famous, and we will not be scattered over the earth." It's interesting when you see that, right? If you look in Patriarchs and Prophets, what Ellen White actually says about this is they decided, it says here, we will not be scattered over the earth. What part of their decision making was is they didn't believe God's promise that he was going to not send a flood again. They said, you know what? If I build this tower way high, when the flood waters come again, we're going to be safe. They didn't believe in God. And they wanted to build something that showed their greatness, right? We will become famous. Then the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people have built. Picking up now, verse 6, the Lord said, now these people are united, all speaking the same language. This is only the beginning of what they will do. They will be able to do anything they want. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not be able to understand each other. Verse 8 and 9, so the Lord scattered them from over the earth, and they stopped building the city. The place is called Babel, since that is where the Lord confused the language of the whole world. So the Lord caused them to spread out over the whole world. Interesting, right? Here at the very beginning, right after the flood, we see this settlement known as Babel. And automatically, right from the start, we see what this city or settlement of Babel represents. Not believing God and showing how good we are ourselves. Not a great start for them. Maybe it gets better. We'll see. But I heard somebody say what the second major city is that is important. Somebody said Jerusalem. Jerusalem started out as a settlement known as Salem. Now that's not Massachusetts, in case you're wondering. Salem, Massachusetts was named for this Salem, right? Salem was also a settlement at the beginning of this age. Genesis chapter 14, we read about it. It says, Genesis 14, we're reading 18 through 20. It says, Melchizedek, king of where? Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest for God Most High and blessed Abraham, saying, Abraham, may you be blessed by God Most High, the God who made heaven and earth. And we praise God Most High, who has helped you defeat your enemies. Then Abraham gave Melchizedek a tenth of everything he had brought back from battle. So here again we see a settlement, but you notice it's very different because here there is a priest who serves whom? God Most High, right? And you notice that this isn't a place that is dedicated to man-made achievement. It is a place where man recognizes God's achievement by returning a tenth of what he has taken. Two very different cities, and yet they are both present here at the beginning of time. Babel and Salem. And so we can see, we're going to run through some comparisons here of these two cities. In Babel, we find it is a place of confusion. So Babel, we read there in Genesis, right? It is called Babel because God did what? He scattered the language of the people, right? Meaning that you couldn't understand each other. This, incidentally, is where we get the word baby, right? Babel, baby. We call them babies because we cannot understand their speech. Or you might say they are babbling. To babble is to speak in a way you don't understand. This is where these words come from, right? So we see this city, but then conversely, we see Salem, right? Salem is a place of peace. Do you know what Salem means? Peace. It is a Hebrew word meaning peace. We have a king of Salem, Melchizedek, who is a king of peace. Incidentally, if you've interacted with any Jews, you maybe have heard the term shalom, correct? That's often used as a salutation, right? When you greet someone, you say shalom. Shalom is a word that literally just means peace, but when it's used as a salutation, when you greet somebody by saying shalom, what you're actually saying is peace to you, right? It's an impartment of peace. That is where that word comes from. Shalom comes from the root of the word Salem. Two cities, two very different paths that they have started out on. And as we've delved further into the Old Testament, we actually find that these two cities continue to grow and prosper. We'll start again with Babylon now. Babylon. We can read about this in Isaiah 13, 19 and 20. It says, Babylon is the most beautiful of all kingdoms, and the Babylonians are very proud of it. Hey, how about that? Beautiful kingdom, right? You know, sometimes are we proud that, America is one of the nicest countries in the world, and maybe we're proud of that? I don't want to go there just yet, but that's okay. Babylon is the most beautiful of all the kingdoms. It's not a question, it's a statement, right? It is true. And the people of Babylon are very proud of it. God will destroy it like Sodom and Gomorrah. Oh boy, that turned pretty quick, didn't it? No one will ever live there or settle there again. No Arab will put a tent there. No shepherd will bring sheep there. Incidentally, is this true? You know any Babylonians? But wait a minute, didn't I just say that these two cities still exist? Push the pause button if that's on your mind. We'll get there, don't worry. We can also see that Jerusalem, Salem grows into the city of Jerusalem. This city continues to grow and expand. Here, 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 15. After Solomon woke from the dream, not going into what the dream is, that's not the point here, he went to Jerusalem. He stood before the Ark of the Agreement with the Lord, where he made burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. After that, he gave a feast for all the leaders and officers. Solomon ruled Jerusalem over Israel, or in Jerusalem over Israel, for 40 years. Pretty long reign, right? He was there a while. You can see there are still important differences between what happens in Babylon and what happens in Jerusalem, can't you? Take a look. So in Babylon, we still believe this is a place of confusion because the people are saying, hey, this is a great place, but God's saying, nah, it's going to be rubble. But we can also see that Babylon becomes a monument to man-made achievement, right? Babylon is the most beautiful of all the kingdoms, and the people are proud of it. Man-made achievements. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar, who was Nebuchadnezzar, do you remember? King of Babylon. What did he say? This is great Babylon that I have built, right? Human achievement. And yet we look at Salem. Salem is a place of peace. And what did Solomon go before in Jerusalem? The temple and the ark. He went to the temple, which is in Jerusalem. He went into the holy place and made offering before the ark. Incidentally, what is the ark? Do you know? That's right. It contains the Ten Commandments, right? As well as a jar of manna and Aaron's rod. And sitting on top of the ark is what? The lid, that is the mercy seat. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Take my word for it, look it up later. Don't just take my word for it, look it up later. What we are told is that the temple was basically a miniature model of God's throne in heaven. And God rules from the mercy seat. Good news for you and me, right? It is a place of peace. God makes peace with us. So therefore, the ark, the Ten Commandments, the manna, Aaron's rod, the cherubim, the mercy seat, these are symbols of God's achievement. Babylon, man-made achievement. Jerusalem, God's achievement. You notice the difference that these two cities, they started out on very different paths, and they are continuing to go this way. But didn't I say both of these cities still exist? Do you know any Babylonians? Any of you ever met a Babylonian? I've never met one, because Babylon as an empire has not existed for thousands of years. It's been gone. That's right. If you remember, Babylon is in what is today Iraq. And one of the things that Saddam Hussein believed was that he was destined to restore the empire of Babylon. And you actually see he had a lot of artwork and stuff depicting that Iraq was actually a modern version of the empire of Babylon, and misguided at best. Didn't work out for him. Not here to talk about the Iraq War or anything like that, but didn't work out for him. However, I can tell you most assuredly that Babylon still exists today. How can I tell you this? Because the Bible says so. You want to see it? All right. Revelation chapter 17. So we jumped a long way, right? We've gone from Isaiah, and we're jumping all the way forward to Revelation. We've jumped a long way. Revelation chapter 17. We'll start with verse 1. I may be euphemistic in some of the things that I say here for little ears' sake, but let's read what it says. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and spoke to me. He said, "Come, and I will show you the punishment that will be given to the great prostitute, the one sitting over many waters. The kings of the earth have sinned with her, and the people of earth became drunk from the wine of her sin." Wow. Doesn't sound good, does it? So then we can pick it up in verse 3. Then the angel carried me in the spirit to the desert, where I saw a woman sitting on a red beast. It was covered with names against God, written on its 7 heads and 10 horns. Then verse 4 and 5 here. The woman was dressed in purple and red and was shining with the gold, precious jewels, and pearls she was wearing. She had a gold cup in her hand, a cup filled with evil things and uncleanliness of her sin. On her forehead, a title was written that was secret. This is what was written: the great who? Babylon, mother of prostitutes, and of the evil things of the earth. Did you catch that? Who is this? Babylon. And did you catch what it describes about this particular woman? What is she dressed with? Purple. What is adorning her? Gold, silver, jewels. When we want to show people how successful and powerful we are as humans, what do? We start wearing gold chains and watches. We start displaying our wealth for everybody to see. We create a symbol of man-made achievement for everyone else to observe. Babylon is still representing the same thing. Did you see this? It is still representing man-made achievements. Hasn't changed in millennia. Exactly the same it was all the way back in Genesis 11 when it started. It continues here. Verse 4. Then I saw the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people and with the blood of those who were killed because of their faith in Jesus. When I saw this, I was amazed. I'm sure he was. This was quite a sight for John. Let's fast forward a little bit here to chapter 18, where it says, "Ruined, ruined is the great city of Babylon. She has become a home for demons and a prison for every evil spirit, and a prison for every unclean bird and unclean beast. She has been ruined because all the peoples of the earth have drunk the wine of the desire of her sin. She has been ruined also because the kings of the earth have sinned with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the great wealth of her luxury." Then I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of that city, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so you will not receive the disasters that will come to her." You see, what we have seen here is a picture of what is happening today. Babylon is still fighting, existing today. Are people still displaying their man-made achievements? Babylon exists today. Are people still confused about God's message? Babylon still exists today. And when we jump forward to Revelation 18, we see Babylon is still existing up until the end when God says to his people, "Come out of her, so you do not partake in her destruction. Babylon started at the beginning of this world. Babylon ends at the end of this world. Destruction will come to Babylon. But remember, there are two cities, aren't there? Because, sure, there is a new Babylon, but there's also the new Jerusalem. Revelation chapter 21, so skipping forward a couple more chapters here. Excuse me. John writes, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth had disappeared, and there was no sea anymore." I always like that. I spent, I'm sorry, I like to pause and talk for a bit, so just bear with me. I spent a better part of a decade living on a different continent than my brother. My brother and I were very close. We're good friends. And I spent the better part of a decade living on a different continent from my brother. And there was always one thing that was separating us: the sea. And so I feel a warmth when I see John looking at the new earth and saying, "Hey, there's no sea." Why was that significant to John? Where was John when he was writing this? Patmos. What is Patmos? It's an island. It's an island where John was separated from all of his friends, his relatives, all of his fellow Christian believers. So no matter what, wherever John went on Patmos, he was separated from his friends and fellow believers by a sea. And when John looked at the new earth, he said, hey, you know what I see? I see no sea. That is nice, because there's no longer that separation between me and the people I care about. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'll continue now. "And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It was prepared like a bride dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Now God's presence is with people, and he will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them and will be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, sadness, crying, or pain, because the old ways are gone.'" Any of you ever felt the pain of the death of someone that's had to leave us? Any of you felt sadness in your life? Have any of you felt pain in your joints? I'll tell you what, I keep sleeping wrong and my ribs keep hurting me. Looking forward to that not being a case anymore. The old ways are gone. It's very different. And so still we can see a comparison between these two cities. Because we have Babylon. It continues to be a place of confusion, correct? We have Babylon that continues to be a monument to human achievement, correct? We have Babylon that contains every kind of evil. We have Babylon that is heading straight for destruction. But on the other side, this second city, we have Jerusalem, which is still a place of peace. It is still a symbol for what God has achieved. It still contains only the holy. It soothes and comforts, and it never ends. Let me tell you, I think Babylon is alive and well in the world today. I hate to say this, but I think Babylon is even alive and well in some Christian churches today. I'm a bit foolhardy at times, and I'll jump into some conversations that discretion may have been a better action for me. But sometimes I can't help myself. Maybe you're in that situation too. You see something, it's like, I can't help myself. I got to say something here. And, I will follow several Christian groups and Christian leaders on different social medias, right? And sometimes I'll see things that, yes, I absolutely agree with. I like seeing that, or a different perspective. They're like, yes, I appreciate that. Sometimes, however, I see things and I'm like, I got to say something. Like, you're way off. This one time, I got very waded into a conversation about the Sabbath. So this Christian believer was talking about Jesus being Lord of the Sabbath, and somehow that meant that the Sabbath doesn't matter anymore. Is what he got to. I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about that. And what is interesting is, as is the case when you're a little less wise and you jump into a conversation, you get about 20 or 30 people jumping in wanting to join the conversation. And I asked the simple question, why is the Sabbath no longer relevant? Right? Why should we as Christians not keep the Sabbath? And I got about 20 different answers that completely contradicted everyone else's answers from this group of 30 people as to why the Sabbath doesn't matter. Some of them said, no days matter, right? Every day is holy. Some people said, nope, Sunday is holy because Jesus was raised from the dead on Sunday, right? Like someone else said, nope, that's not it. It's because the church said that it's holy. Someone else said, no, that's not why. I had 20 different reasons as to why people thought Sunday was the right day. And I said, I see confusion. Surely, if Sunday was the day that we should set aside for God, there would be one clear, concise answer as to why, right? Not 20 different ones that all contradict the other ones. And I'm maybe slightly ashamed to say, this isn't the only time I've gotten into this type of conversation. Another one around speaking in tongues, right? And it was like, generally when you see speaking in tongues in the Bible, or you see something referring to tongues, it's talking about languages, speaking in different languages. Tongues is a Old English way of saying languages. So like when Paul is talking about someone speaking in tongues in a service, he's not saying somebody's babbling and saying something unusual, because babbling is the root of where? Babel. It's confusion. In fact, Paul is very clear, and he says, if there's nobody there to interpret that language, that person should be quiet because it's not actually helping anybody. Now, if somebody can interpret, that's great. Let them share, right? But it's not this like secret heavenly language that we're speaking or something like that. Like, it's very confused. You will notice confusion everywhere you look in the world and with those that are aligned with Babylon. And perhaps this is one of the most important things, is that Jerusalem is where we find Jesus. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, right? This is a prophecy of the Messiah that is coming. It says, a child has been born to us. God has given us a son. He will be responsible for leading his people. His name will be Wonderful Counselor, Powerful God, Father who lives forever, and the Prince of Peace. What does Salem mean? Peace. Who is the Prince of Peace? Jesus. Where would you be likely to find Jesus? The city of peace. He is the Prince of Peace. And what you will find is that you will never find Jesus contained in Babylon. 1 Corinthians 12:33, Paul writes, God is not a God of confusion, Babylon, but a God of peace, Jerusalem. And incidentally, in this particular verse, he's talking about what I was referencing in speaking in tongues, right? Things should be done in an orderly way. But it's true. God is not a God of confusion. God is not the God of Babylon. God is the God of peace, of Salem. Looking here, James chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, it says, where jealousy and selfishness are, there will be confusion and every kind of evil. But the wisdom that comes from God is first of all pure, then peaceful, gentle, and easy to please. This wisdom is always ready to help those who are troubled and to do good for others. It is always fair and honest. You see, if I were to ask most people and say, what is the antonym of peace, the opposite of peace? I think most people would probably answer war, right? Makes sense? If you're not at peace, you're at war. I would suggest that is actually, while true, not the best answer to give. Because we can see here, I've given you verse after verse after verse, that is comparing two different things. The antonym to peace is confusion. Confusion is the opposite of peace. And so when we are sowing confusion, we are not working for peace. Again, think about these two cities and what they represent, right? Confusion and peace. Human achievement and God's achievement. containing evil or containing the holy, heading to destruction or never ending. Very different. You know, it's interesting because sometimes we like to try and keep a foot in both camps, right? Well, you know, I'm sort of in Jerusalem, but I'm dabbling in Babylon a little bit, right? That's okay. I'll convert earlier, right? Any of you know who Boris Johnson is, perchance? Former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. About 4 prime ministers ago now, and just to be clear, like he only stepped down in 2021. Turbulent times in the UK, apparently. But former Prime Minister of the UK. I promise I'm not here to talk to you about politics. I never am. Something interesting you maybe don't know about Boris Johnson. He was actually born in New York City to parents who were English. So Boris Johnson, for the majority of his life, held 2 citizenships. He was a citizen of the United Kingdom, but he was also a citizen of the United States. He had 2 passports. Now, whether you like or dislike Boris Johnson doesn't particularly matter to me. However, I think you have to be admirable when, or you have to praise the admirability of when a politician actually tells you the truth, because it's extremely rare, if you haven't noticed at this point in life. And I'm sorry if you hold a politician in high regard, but I can tell you that the old joke is, how do you know when a politician is lying? Their mouth is moving. Terrible joke, sorry. But nonetheless, Boris Johnson actually came out and renounced, gave up his American citizenship. And he was actually quite honest as to why he did it. He didn't like the United States tax policy. The law states that when you are a United States citizen, any income you make from anywhere in the world is taxable by the United States. And Boris Johnson said, yeah, I don't want to keep giving money to America. I want to keep more of my money. At least he was honest about it. But ultimately, there was another reason that he wanted to do this. During the time he gave it up, he was also seeking to become Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom. And he knew it would be a political challenge for him to hold American citizenship while being the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So that's another reason he gave it up. Ultimately, it's true for us too. We cannot hold dual citizenship. Are you aware of this? You cannot be a citizen of Babylon and a citizen of Jerusalem. They are antonyms. They are opposites. They are completely far apart. You cannot hold a dual citizenship. Keep in mind then what the scriptures say. 1 Kings chapter 18:21. Elijah approached the people. This is when he was on Mount Carmel contending with the prophets of Baal. He approached the people and said, how long will you not decide between 2 choices? If the Lord is a true God, follow him. But if Baal is a true God, follow him. You've got 2 choices. You can't go down the middle. Pick one and stick with it. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 17 through 22. We have here, with the Lord's authority, I say this, live no longer as the Gentiles do, for they are hopelessly confused. Their minds are full of darkness. They wander far from the life God gives them because they have closed their minds and have hardened their hearts against him. They have no sense of shame. They live for lustful pleasure and eagerly practice every kind of impurity. But that isn't what you learned about Christ. Since you have heard about Jesus and have learned the truth that comes from him, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. You can't live for confusion while being a citizen of peace. Doesn't work. And right now, it maybe seems like you could skirt the line a little bit. That's not true forever. You remember what God said in Revelation 18. There will come a time with a loud voice that God will say, come out of her. Come out of who? Babylon. Come out of her, my people. It's time for your final choice. If you ever watched that show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That's it, right? I don't even know if that's still on. I don't really watch television. So, but you remember, you may remember that when they give an answer, they say D 1000, and whoever the host is will lean in and say, "Is that your final answer?" There comes a time where God says, "Come out of her, because this is your final answer." What choice are you going to make? Are you going to be in confusion, heading for destruction? Are you going to be in peace, heading for eternal life? Seems like a pretty easy choice to me. What does it seem like to you? Share one more verse with you here. It's Colossians chapter 1, verses 21 and 22. You used to be far from God. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if that is true of you. I'm going to assume it probably is, because we've all been far from God at times. Your thoughts made you his enemies, and you did evil things. But his son became human and died. So God made peace with you. And now he lets you stand in his presence as people who are holy and faultless and innocent. God has made peace with us and given us the opportunity to be citizens of that city of peace. Abraham was looking for that city. We read that in Hebrews 11, right? He was looking for a city that wasn't made by humans. It's not a monument to man-made achievement. It was made by who? By God. He was looking forward to that city. And John the Revelator saw that city coming down out of heaven, prepared as a bride. Who is that bride? Jesus is the husband. The bride is the church. That's right. Trick question. The bride is the church. Does that mean this building is the bride? No. It's his people. It's the people that have clung to their passport that says, I am a citizen of Jerusalem. I am a citizen of peace. And wherever Jesus wants me to go, that is where I am. Do you want to be a partaker in that new heaven and that new earth? Do you want to be a citizen of that new Jerusalem that was prepared not for any one individual, but for us to be forever with Jesus? I hope so too.